Hi everyone, and welcome to Module 4, Preparing a Crisis Plan. For many companies and PR professionals, developing and or updating a crisis plan is just too time consuming. Their days are full of work-related business and putting out little fires. However, having an updated current crisis plan in place is crucial for the success and image of a company in the event that a crisis were to occur. According to Burson Marsteller, an international public relations firm, three-quarters of business decision makers, such as CEOs and the like, believe a crisis plan would be beneficial. Yet only about 51% actually have one. And of those that have one, only 1 in 3 feel the plan would be beneficial in a crisis situation. In summarizing the reasons for not creating or updating a company's crisis plan, the research found that businesses felt there was not enough of a priority, that it rarely, if ever, was going to be needed, that a crisis plan was too expensive, and that it would take too much time to plan it. In addition, according to a study done by the Institute for Crisis Management, only 14% of business crises are unexpected. That means that about 86% of crises are smoldering within the organization. What I mean by this term smoldering is that organizations are aware of potential dangerous business disruptions or even possible crises long before they actually occur, and long before any public relations staff are even informed. Weber Shandwick Public Relations, another leading global PR firm, found 3 triggers for a crisis which may lead to why key leaders don't want to talk about planning. All are internal issues and may be created by top management alone. They are financial irregularities within the company, unethical conduct within the company, and even executive misconduct. Planning for a crisis in advance is imperative, yet many companies still remain unprepared. So when we talk about a crisis plan, exactly what am I talking about? Well, a crisis plan is a comprehensive written document which outlines the various steps and procedures one should follow in the event of a crisis situation. The document can be in hard copy or even uploaded to a cloud storage for safer access. However, it must be easily accessible by key enabling publics of your company, and they must have 24-hour access to this document. A crisis plan may have 2 very distinct sections. The first is the crisis management plan. This document is usually very large and has many components. It may include evacuation procedures, emergency staffing, equipment rentals, even step-by-step procedures for what employees need to do in the event of a crisis, and so forth. This document needs to be regularly updated with new information as things change within the company. For our purposes, the second part of the plan is the crisis communication plan. Now, this can be totally separate from the crisis management plan. But this document outlines the step-by-step procedures the crisis communications personnel need to follow in order to communicate with their various publics. This may include having sample news releases, media contact information, directions on how to send out a company-wide email or text alert, anything that employees may not do on a day-to-day basis and that they could easily forget. Thus, having step-by-step instructions in the plan is helpful. There are various steps to developing a comprehensive crisis plan. The first step is to create a crisis management team. And this is of key employees who can access the crisis, who have access to the crisis and can make decisions. These people need to come from all aspects of your company, from management, production, communications, internet personnel, all the way to security. In fact, If you don't have a legal department, you may want to hire an outside legal partner to assist with company decision making. Once the crisis occurs, these are the decision makers and leaders in the crisis situation. The next step is to conduct a crisis inventory. This process begins with your crisis management team, and they must ask themselves, what's the worst thing that could happen to our organization? And they must identify these worst case situations and what scenarios could occur. Then they should make a list of at least the 10 worst potential crises, and they need to be honest about them. Sometimes companies will hire outside PR counsel to help them examine the organization. These people can be more objective in helping you identify your organization's vulnerabilities and possible crises that could be smoldering within your company. This list of crises is not all-inclusive, depending on the type of crises your organization could possibly have. But it is a guide to various types of crises that could occur. If we just look at UNF, I have highlighted in red the various crises that have happened over the last 2 decades. As your crisis management team begins to assess which crises could happen to the organization, it can create what is called a crisis inventory. This inventory chart ranks each crisis by the probability of it occurring to your company, then ranks them by the potential damage to your company's reputation. In the 10 or so crises that your team has chosen, which ones have the highest risk of occurring and have the greatest potential for the most damage? Since the companies have limited resources, those crises that are most likely to occur and have the most damage should be the ones you address in your crisis management plan. Here is an example of a crisis inventory chart. You can see when you visually put the probability of occurrence and the potential damage close together, it clearly helps you address which crises are the most important. As an example, UNF has selected 7 different crises as the main threats to our campus. Each of these types of crises would have different potential damage depending on the depth of the crises. Even though only 7 are selected as the top ones, UNF communication personnel can be ready for any unforeseen crisis that could occur, but they focus on these being the most probable. The third step in creating a crisis plan is identifying your key publics. Just like the assignment you completed for this class in which you had to segment the publics into various categories, in a crisis plan you must do the same. Once your publics have been identified, you must create contact lists, especially of your enabling publics. These contact lists include cell and home phone numbers, emails, and even out-of-town information. If some of your enabling publics often travel to vacation homes or visit out-of-town relatives. In addition, you must create checklists of various communication methods you will use to reach other key stakeholders, such as mass text messaging, emailing, and voice messaging. Next, in step 3, you must have a comprehensive media contact list with deadlines. Since media personnel move around a lot, it is important to update this list frequently. You'll also need to create sample media questions and answers to those questions, and even skeletal news releases with just basic information. We'll discuss media in future modules, but the more information you've created before a crisis occurs, the less you have to create from scratch once a crisis happens. In addition, it is important to have access to other pre-gathered information, such as blueprints of the building, company maps, and company fact sheets, executive bios, photographs, anything your crisis team deems important in a crisis situation. If you plan ahead and keep this information in one place for easy access, it will help you be more in control and organized once the media and other key publics start asking questions. And finally, decide on who will be your key spokespersons. You'll need more than one person, especially if the crisis is large and there is round the clock updates needed. Make sure to media train your key spokespersons. Just because a person gives a good speech or is a friendly person doesn't mean he or she can handle the barrage of questions given by the media. Step 4 encompasses making sure your plan is complete, up to date, and ready. Many companies actually test their plan through mock crisis run-throughs. An example is how UNF checks its public address system on Friday afternoons, and at various times will send out sample text alerts and voice messages to make sure the system is working correctly. You will also want to cross-train your communication and other key staff in how to deal with a crisis. Training means the protocol for answering the phone, fielding media questions and any other questions to the right person, email procedures, website management, and so forth. By cross-training everyone, those people can assist in every aspect of the plan. If one person is out on leave, another staff member can take his or her place. And finally, update your plan at least once a year. Have your crisis team review it for changes in protocol, procedures, and even staff changes. Once a crisis plan is created, it needs to be a working document, not just put on the shelf or in the cloud, never to be viewed again until a crisis occurs. In completing your plan, you must include a step 5, which is basically a checklist of what needs to be reviewed after the crisis has passed. Just because the crisis is over doesn't mean you can go back to life as normal. You need to evaluate what your company has done right and what it needs to improve. Plan a follow-up meeting with your crisis team to discuss. Review all media coverage and social media coverage, plus any letters or notes that came into your company. Update your key messages and pre-gathered information, and write an evaluation of your plan, including the good and bad aspects, so that you can make changes for the future. Remember, most crises don't happen between 8 and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. They may happen in the middle of the night or on weekends. You must be ready and have access to your plan at all times. Your objectives as a crisis communications manager are to dispel any sense of crisis by being in control, coming across as a credible source, showing consistency in all of your messages, and of course, being compassionate to those affected by the crisis. Overall, your job is to maintain the company's image and reputation in spite of the crisis at hand. In closing, a goal without a plan is just a wish. In crisis management, planning is everything.